Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to It's Rainmaking Time. This is Kim Greenhouse. I have to tell you, many years ago, I was in downtown Los Angeles. There was a Chinese festival, and I had the good pleasure and good fortune of meeting the Feng Shui lady, Angi Ma Wong, a world-renowned pioneer and authority in the fascinating world of Feng Shui. She is a businesswoman, an entrepreneur, a best-selling author, a wife and mother. She's a Rotarian who actually coined the term intercultural consultant. And she's also a cancer survivor. She's written so many books. Let me name some of them. Feng Shui, Do's and Taboos on financial success. Feng Shui, Do's and Taboos on love. Feng Shui, Do's and Taboos, a guide to what to place where. Fascinating book. She has so many books on well-being. She has a Feng Shui home design kit. Wonderful new books for children. My Story, Reggie, The LA Gator, Who Ate My Socks, and more. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my great pleasure to welcome Angi Ma Wong to It's Rainmaking Time. Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you so much for coming on the show. I'm so excited to have you.
Thank you. It's my pleasure.
I've rarely met somebody in my life who integrated all the different aspects of life into a business. What are you doing? Why are you doing it? You're doing so many things. Talk about it.
Well, I think I mentioned to you in one of our conversations, I consider myself a missionary, not a religious or a spiritual missionary, but a missionary of knowledge and learning. I learned it from my dad, who loved learning, he loved reading, he loved writing, and I learned all my manners and all those things that make a poised young lady from my mom. My dad was a diplomat, and so we moved in some, I don't want to say rarefied air circles or anything like that, but it was something that I've always been, I grew up in modest circumstances in Wellington, New Zealand. And when I go on my author tours to the schools and speak to young folks, I tell them, I grew up where we barely had a radio. There was no television, no iPods, no, none of these electronic gadgets and toys that you have. But I got 3 gifts from my parents that I'm forever grateful for, who really influenced me. My parents really influenced who I was. Number 1, they gave me unconditional love and support for everything I did. Number 2, because we didn't have a lot of money at that time, I was not surrounded by toys and gifts and dolls and all those things. But somehow my parents always found the wherewithal to give me gifts, and they were always, for whatever occasion, it was always books and art supplies. And number 3, my mom had a garden, and we had the good fortune of living right up against the parkland in Wellington, up on the hill, and on Marjorie Banks Street. And behind there was the parkland. I grew up climbing trees. I was a real tomboy. My love of nature and love of growing things I inherited from my mom. And so I also was, baptized when I was 8 years old as an Anglican, and yet when I moved to Taiwan and lived in a 3-generation Chinese, traditional Chinese family, I get a real good dose of nationalism as well as community service from my grandparents. And so you mix that all together, and it basically made me who I am today.
You grew up in Wellington, New Zealand. What a beautiful place.
It was. It was a wonderful place to grow up as a child. It just was.
Was it hard to move from Wellington, New Zealand to Taiwan?
The trip itself, literally, it was an awful trip. It was 21 days by ship. We didn't have, plane travel was not common in those days.
Oh, my God.
And 21 days, the first 3 days I had spent lying in bed, but once I got my sea legs, and that was okay. But I've always had motion sickness. I can't take long plane trips. I can't take bus rides, in winding mountainous roads. We owned a catamaran at one time, and that ended I couldn't even stand there and pull up the sails, what are called the sails. I mean, I'm just a wimp when it comes. I even get car sick following a diesel bus when I'm driving now.
I can see why, though. Maybe the fumes put you under.
The trip itself, was uncomfortable for the first 3 days, but once I got my sea legs, it was fine. And then when I arrived in Taiwan, I was so out of it. I didn't speak Chinese. I spoke only English because it was my first language. The dialect they spoke in Taiwan was Mandarin Chinese. So within my family, with my mom and dad, I spoke English. With my grandparents, my very cursory Cantonese dialect, which is the dialect of my family. But outside the family and even inside with, we had cooks, chauffeurs. I grew up in a privileged household. I had to learn Mandarin, and all my cousins spoke Mandarin. I ended up at the Taipei American School in Taipei because I couldn't speak Chinese, and I would have flunked out of any. I wouldn't even have been accepted in a Chinese language school.
Wow.
Yeah, so that was my adjustment. So I was an outsider, and each time we moved, because my dad was a diplomat, each time we moved, it was a matter of fitting in again and again and again each time.
How many countries did you move to?
Well,
where'd you go?
I moved from, when I was 2 years old, I moved from Hong Kong to New Zealand. That's one. And then from New Zealand to Taipei to Washington, to New Jersey, New York, Ridgeville, New Jersey, where I was the first and only Asian student ever when I was in the 8th grade. A year later, my father was transferred down to Washington, D.C. Then I went off to college to Blacksburg, Virginia, to Virginia Tech. And then from there, I got married and moved to L.A. And then in L.A., I've moved about 5 times. So that's about 10 times in my life.
Should I say that you like to travel?
Well, I love to travel, but it's it caused a basic insecurity in my life and sentimentality of holding on things that are precious to me because I never had roots anywhere. That's what happens is that, you're uprooted. So I never had a place that I could call my own until I moved to Los Angeles. And by the way, I was named after the city, so I had a very special affinity to L.A. I just love the city. I love the region. It's very precious to me. It's a treasure of my life. But when it comes time for my ashes to be gone,
yeah.
I want them in New Zealand, I want them in Taiwan, I want them in Washington, D.C., and I want them in L.A.
Wow.
Because emotionally and spiritually, I feel like I'm a part, each one of those places is a part of who I am.
I totally understand. Before my father died, he had asked to have his ashes spread at La Cienega Park, where he used to play a lot of tennis,
right,
on the first hole of Rancho Park.
Oh, yeah.
Golf course.
Golf course, uh-huh.
And at the house.
Yeah.
My sister said, the heck with this. They they ran like, we're not having this. But who did it was me. I walked into Rancho, with a little bag. I didn't want anybody to see what I had or whatever. I'm putting the ashes in my hand. I'm spreading them over the first hole. Meanwhile, I'm running into everybody my father knew in the past.
Right.
And then I did the same thing at the house and the park, etc. And, I think for someone to actually do what you ask them to do is an incredible gift to honor the wishes of the people who have passed.
Yeah, I think that I have a friend who recently lost a child, and her son used to fish up in Alaska. And so when he passed, she took the ashes to Sitka Bay, where he used to fish, and scattered them there. And I think that's a wonderful thing.
So we know now where you want to be scattered at the time that you're no longer in the body.
That is it.
Okay. Will do. Now, you have gone through a lot of challenges in your life. You're a cancer survivor, and I want to know, when did you come down with that condition, and when did you eliminate it?
My first cancer experience occurred in 1989. I found a lump in my breast in probably November. It was actually detected at that time. I found it in. I apologize. It was not in November. It was in the springtime of 1989, and I was taking a shower, and I discovered the lump in my right breast, and I said, this is interesting. And I went and felt the left side and said, there's not something corresponding on the left side. So I had not had a base mammogram before my whole life. And so within 2 days, I had not only the mammogram, I had 5 biopsies on one side. Can you imagine how painful that was?
Absolutely.
And then from there. So to make a long story short, that was my first cancer experience, and that changed my life to really drive in the point that life is too short, too precious not to waste it, and do what you want and actuate the dreams. And I had 2 dreams at that time. Well, not only 2, but 2 that were really important. One was to write a book, and one was to own my own business. And I had been in the academia for many years. Then the second time it occurred was 16 years later, and that was in 2004. And at that time, we took care of it again. And the third time was in 2008. So I am a 3-time cancer survivor. And right now, everything is stable. So I've made major lifestyle changes, and every morning I wake up and I thank the Lord.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that He's given me a third chance, and I keep saying to myself, He let me live for a reason, as I have not finished His work, whatever my work is, and that's where I am.
That's beautiful. You've been on a lot of different shows. You've been on Oprah, Regis, CNN, CBS Sunday Morning, Discovery, the Learning Channels, Time Magazine you've been written up in, and Fast Company. And you've been on 400 other internet, broadcast, and print features. What are people looking for when they talk to you? Who do they think they're talking to?
I don't know. I think they think that what I have to say is interesting. I think because I try to be modest about this. I think I was one of the first people in the United States to write about, talk about, and practice Feng Shui, and make it into a business and reach out to people. Most of my clients, way back when there were only about a half a dozen of us in Los Angeles practicing outside of Chinatown, and among those who could speak English and translate it and utilize it for everyone's benefit. I think at that time it was because it was so new. Nobody knew about it. But I was very, very fortunate. I always see the hand of God at work, was that I caught the attention of the building industry. And so for the last, since 1989, so it's 21 years now, 21 years, my major clientele has been the building industry in the United States, mostly in California, also up and down the West Coast, Oregon, state of Washington, on the East Coast. I was conducting seminars and consultations in Charlotte, North Carolina, in Florida, in Chicago, in Atlanta. People had never heard of this, and it's through the building industry that I was able, my clients invited me to speak and do training and seminars for their sales and marketing. I did sales and marketing, reaching the Asian market. That's the general umbrella, and then Feng Shui is one component of it.
Can you explain to the public your translation of what is Feng Shui and why it's relevant?
Feng Shui, I believe, is the environmental art of placement that aligns one's energies with that of the universe. I believe it is something that is holistic, natural, common sense, and something that connects us with what we call cosmic energy, or what we call qi or hei in Cantonese dialect. It moves within our bodies, and it is the whole basis on which traditional Chinese medicine, TCM, is based. It moves outside our bodies in our environment and surrounds us outside of our bodies, and that practice is Feng Shui. And that's what I love the most about Feng Shui, is the connection of the same concepts that unite the interior of our bodies with the exterior of our bodies. And you can see it now. Western medicine poo-pooed Feng Shui, Chinese, they just discounted Chinese medicine for years and years and years. The Western medical community just poo-pooed it and said, this is, woo-woo and hogwash and whatever. But the Chinese have been practicing this philosophy for thousands of years and meticulously recorded over and over the empirical evidence of these concepts. And the basic concepts are they are very different. I don't say they're better or worse or good or bad. They're just different, and that's why it was so difficult for the Western community in general, by and large, to accept them, because they were so different. They talk about, number one, the flow of energy, the flow of this universal energy. Number two, it talks about yin and yang. Yin is the female, the nurturing, the passive, dark, quiet,
receptive,
accepting, a lot of different things. A whole long list, about 40 different attributes. And yang, active, the male, and the sun as opposed to the moon, and mountains opposed to the water, et cetera, and the balance. And the yin-yang symbol is called the Tai Chi. Tai is the ultimate, Chi is energy. So when you see that, the two teardrops, right, with the dark
right,
teardrop,
and the white,
intertwined. That line, that S line between them, Kim, it's not fixed. It's movable. So if you tied one on a Saturday night, after the World Cup, or Sunday night it was, or after the Lakers win, or whatever, the yin part is probably greater. It expands and it contracts, and the yang is not. On the other hand, if you're in good health and you're feeling great and everything's going right with your world, the yang might be a little bit greater. But it's the concept of balance, both within your bodies, everything you see, you eat, you hear, everything, physically, spiritually, mentally, sexually, emotionally, all of those things have to be in balance. The third concept is the concept of the 5 elements. And everything around us, especially the food that we eat, is designated as being yin or yang and one of the 5 elements. And the 5 elements, I won't go into detail, but they work together in 2 ways. One is when they create or support each other, and the other is when they destroy each other. And again, it goes back to balance and how you bring that into your life.
Talk about the 5 elements, though. Say what they are.
5 elements, I will give them to you in the generative cycle. We'll start with wood, and wood creates fire, as we know, right? You throw wood on a campfire, it
right.
causes it to burn brighter and with more strength. Fire creates the earth, so we know that molten lava coming out of the ground at the Volcanoes National Park in Hawaii, right, it's creating what? More earth. Fire creating the earth. The core of the earth is fire and liquid. It comes out, it cools and becomes more, and creates more land. So that's creating earth. Earth creates metal. All metal comes from under the ground and from the earth. Then metal creates water. Now that, is a stretch for many people. And you say, well, how does that? Some explain it, well, when you melt metal, it runs like water. But I think of it this way. When you look up in the sky, the metal, okay, you look at magnetic fields, right?
Right.
Positive and negative attract each other. And when you get the positive and the negative up in the sky, you get thunder, you get lightning followed by rain, right?
Correct.
So you got the positive and negative, which are metal elements, right, coming together and creating rain, which is water. Or you can say, let's bring it more, more to a practical aspect. You go out to your car in the morning, and what do you find on top of your car? Wet, right? There's dew out there, not rain, but,
right.
Condensation. Now we know, simple science, it's condensation. But for someone who did, let's say it's a child, has never seen it. Oh, my gosh, last night when we we left the car in the driveway, the top of the car was dry, right? But now in the morning, there's water on it. So it's like magic, but we know it's, pure science. So I like to explain it that way.
We now know, because of the advanced discoveries in physics, that all matter is animate. It's not just a dead object, and that matter emanates energy from it.
Yes.
And I think that one of the things that Feng Shui does is it verifies that energy is stored and emanates off of objects. They're not just dead. They're not inanimate as we typically think of them.
Yes.
One of the things I thought was very interesting in the 3 books that I read of yours, and I don't know which one it was in, but you were talking about how sometimes people pick up objects from temples and then they all of a sudden have terrible luck.
Yes.
Something happens. Talk about that.
Absolutely. I believe that. Let's say you believe that everything is organic or even inorganic. All right. Well, let's say organic first, because that's easier to comprehend and accept. Everything being organic. Let's say you have a piece of wood furniture in a home. Now, people emanate energy.
Right.
You know that. What if the furniture in a home absorbs, let's say the metal, or metal not so much, but certainly, metal, yes. Let's say a piece of jewelry.
Correct.
And wear it on your hand. Or that being, inorganic, okay? And then we have something like a piece of wooden furniture. So we have both
metal
possibilities. Yeah,
correct.
Both metal and wood. And you say, okay, people are emanating this energy. Let's say it's in a happy household, okay? So what do you think is happening? The energy in a happy wife or husband's wedding ring that he wears for 40, she wears for 50, 60 years. And this energy that is being absorbed in the wooden furniture. Now let's take the flip side of that. What if it is a home that is filled with negative energy? A lot of friction, a lot of anger, a lot of hostility. What do you think happens to those objects?
They absorb it.
They absorb it. And so, is it a stretch to think or believe that when you pick up an antique from someone's home or a garage sale or from anywhere, and I've seen it over and over and over again, and I've got stories galore, right? We could be here for hours telling about 21 years of doing Feng Shui consultations.
This may be a virtual kidnapping, but please continue.
But can you, and I've seen it. So let's say you go to a garage sale and you see a beautiful vase, and you say, oh, that's great. And you take it home, and then all of a sudden, negative things start happening. And then you realize, oh, my gosh, that was my neighbor across the street having a garage sale because she got a divorce.
Well, let me ask you something. Some people may hear this, okay, in the background.
Yes.
And utter to themselves, it's superstitious stuff.
Yes.
But given my own background and talking to physicists and people that are experts in the area of resonance, the resonant field, talking about matter and talking about what is animate and what isn't, we are in a new world of understanding.
Yes.
And therefore, if resonance exists and matter is animate, this isn't a superstition.
No, it is not. And that's why I was so delighted and so appreciative that you invited me to speak and interview me for your show. I appreciate it. Because I am married to an electrical engineer.
Wow.
And so you can imagine when I started my Feng Shui work. He said, and bless his heart, we have been married for 43 years.
Congratulations.
Yes.
You're going to be in Guinness.
No. No, that would be my in-laws who were married 75.
Wow.
Yeah. But anyway, and he was very supportive, but skeptical, because he's a left brain person.
Right.
Analytical, logic. Give me the facts. Give me person. But as he went with me on my speaking engagements, like I was speaking in front of the dinner speaker, the keynote speaker at different events, he realized it was not superstition. He realized, no, this is a lot of very practical. It's practical, and I'm going to use an example for you.
Okay.
I'm going to use an example for it. You would not build a house. Nobody who would like to build a house would simply plop a house on a piece of land. You would not plant your plants in the wrong place in your garden. You would just be wasting your money. For example, if you knew that a bougainvillea requires lots of sunshine and light dry, you would not plant a bougainvillea under, let's say, a big tree. Correct?
Correct.
And you would not place your house so that you would waste energy. That is why we hire architects, because an architect will look at the land and say, this is exactly to make this the most energy efficient. I need to angle this house in a certain way so it takes advantage of the light, but does not absorb the heat. And that is why most homes in China were built facing north-south. Now, let me take this further and
please do,
to help dispel this thing about superstition. Think of fall coming around, after Labor Day, and not in L.A., but about October, in the northern hemisphere. Where do the birds fly?
That's your answer. Where do they fly?
They fly south, right?
They fly south?
They go south because it's warmer. They're seeking warmer climates. Where do the salmon of the Pacific Northwest swim to in the ocean in the fall? They are going to southern waters. Where do the whales off the California coast swim? Where do they go? From December to April. They're going towards Mexico. And where do all the people in New York go in the wintertime?
To Florida.
Why?
Because it's warmer.
Got it. This is the way of nature, right? People are seeking warmer climates. It's climates. And it's the same way with why in the old, pioneer days, in the springtime, in the summer or whenever, the cattlemen would take their ranches up to different places to do their spring feeding and what have you. They move the herds of cattle around, or the sheep in New Zealand. They move them around depending on where the food is and where the climate is. And this is nature. This is not superstition. And so why do we, in Feng Shui, prefer a house that is facing the south? In the northern hemisphere is because north is cold. And so we want our back to be protected. And so we want to face it towards, against, we don't want the cold wind blowing into the front of our house where the windows are.
So there's a method to this.
Oh, yes, there is.
This mystery.
Yes, but it's not a mystery. It is good common sense. East. Why? The eastern sun in the morning is very weak. It's weak. It grows stronger until the apex at noon. And then by afternoon, all afternoon, you get that hot western sun that fades your draperies and carpets, right?
Right.
So east is not good. It's not long enough. It's not warm enough. West is not good because it's too hot and, too hot. North is not good. And so where is the best place for house plants? It's always in the south. You get the light, just the right amount of warmth. And so when I traveled from one Chinese city to another, to Nanjing, several years ago, I looked out the window because it was a 2-hour drive, and I looked out the window, and every village, the houses were all the streets were east-west streets with the backs of the houses facing towards the north and the front of the houses. In other words, they were not flipped. All the houses. In other words, if you were living on this street, this house, you would be looking at somebody's backyard. And the next street down from you or up from you, it would be the same. Everybody's houses were faced that way. Because they wanted the light, they wanted protection. So one of the basic guidelines for choosing a home or a gravesite or a temple is always have some protection in the back of your home. And that would be to have a stand of mountains, a stand of trees, something higher and taller for protection from the wind and rain and sandstorms and whatever. So that's good common sense. And it's the same thing when the architect says, I'm going to angle this, it gets, and now they have software. It used to be they had to go out and do it themselves and find out what the sun patterns were in all 4 seasons. And now they have software that actually can rotate the house and find out exactly how much heat would be, and they have to do all that.
That's remarkable. What's the name of that software? Is that for architects only?
Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm not up to date. But
that's wild.
It is. It's wonderful because now they don't have to do these mathematical calculations. There's software. I don't know what it is, but I've seen it at work.
Wow.
I work with my builders, and they can actually show where the sun is going to be. If they plop Model A, on this lot, they can actually show you where the sun is, spring, summer, winter, and fall, on the month, the day, and the season, and show you where the sun is going to be. And I'm sure landscape architects probably have, landscape designers also have this kind of software, and structurally too, but mostly, the architects and the landscape designers, because they have to know. They do not want to waste time and money, their clients' money, and their reputation by planting the wrong kind of trees and plants and flowers in the wrong place where they will die from either too much heat, too little heat, too much shade, too much sun, not enough water,
So I have a radical question.
Okay.
If it is so that we now know that matter is animate and that objects absorb energy, positive and negative, then my question to you is, should people who are in a dwelling, whether it's an apartment, a house, an office, whatever, if they have furniture in there, objects in there that have absorbed unhappiness, struggle, strife, should they get rid of those objects?
Yes and no. Number one, I say no with a caveat. I inherited my dad. My dad, when he got older, as older people do, elderly people do, they get frail. And he had some beautiful watches, and he gave them all to me. And he didn't have a watch anymore, so I went out and bought him a $30 thinnest watch I could get. Okay, I can't remember the store, but it was one of these $30. It was either at a department store or a drugstore. You see a whole little display of $30 watches.
Sure.
I got him the thinnest one, and when he died, he was wearing that watch. But he gave me his nice, expensive watches that he had been wearing for many years. All right. If you know and love and respect the person who owned it before, who wore that piece of jewelry, whether it's a necklace, earrings, a watch, a bracelet, whatever it was, whatever the item was, if you knew and loved that person, you knew that person, then it's not spooky, it's not superstitious. You are being close and continue to be close. I wear my dad's watch on special occasions when I really want his spirit with me. Now that is the yes. It's okay to keep that thing, whatever the item is. The answer no is if you do not know who it came from. A lot of people go to estate sales, antique shops, whatever, right?
Right.
And they obtain items, especially antiques, and we'll get into that in a little bit later. And you do not know who these strangers are. Also, people collect things from other cultures that have, you think, oh, wow, that's a great mask, and it'll go wonderful with my collection of masks. Or this piece of statuary, ooh, this would look great on my coffee table or wherever. But you don't know the origin, and you don't know its history. And you bring it home, and all hell breaks loose. Excuse my language.
Yeah, no, I understand.
Yeah,
but it's also the intent too in the object, correct?
Pardon?
A lot of people have masks from Africa.
Death masks.
Exactly.
Or this piece of pottery, or this urn, or this vase, or something was from someone's tomb. It was a tomb piece. Would you want that in your home?
No.
So, for example, I have people who, you see in some decorating magazines. Oh, you can get a reproduction of a terracotta, one of the terracotta figures from China, or you could get something from the pyramids. Now, if it's the real thing, that's even worse. Okay, if it's real, and it really did come, or it came from a temple, or a church, or a cathedral. And I'll get to that in a second in an aside. But if it's from anything having to death and dying, don't touch it. Don't bring it home. Don't bring a temple bell home. Why a temple and any artifact or icon from a church? Temples and churches, cathedrals, religious kind of. And the reason is because those were all ceremonial things, and think of all the people who were in that that structure, absolving themselves of what? Number one is sin.
That's a fascinating concept. The thing has absorbed the mass consciousness of what's being cleared in that area.
Exactly. And the energy. It's not only the mental energy, but it's the physical energy. So here I am. I've done horrible things. I've beaten up my wife. I come to church and I'm trying to absolve myself of my sins and all this negativity and my anger and all these negative emotions and whatever. And guess what? It's all floating around there.
Isn't there a science to clearing the energy of the thing? And can you clear it sufficiently?
Okay. I believe, let's put it down into very ordinary terms. You know how we do spring cleaning we don't do so much in California because we're so blessed with wonderful weather. But the people back east and who experience the 4 seasons, they've been shut up inside their homes, right?
Right.
For a whole winter. And spring finally comes around. And you know what they should do and why they do it? They open all the doors and windows and they take their carpets out and they smack them and get the dust out and the dirt out and the windows are open, everything is clean. And what a wonderful way you're using fresh nature, nature's cleansing to come through and air out everything that's been bottled up and contained all winter long. And isn't that great?
It's done all the time.
So I always, when we say Feng, which is wind, and Shui is water, and I always add also Fo, which is fire. So you can use Feng, which is wind, which is opening up your windows and let all that fresh air come in and, air out and get the air circulating and pushing out all the stale air and stale energy and all the negative, anything that's in there, okay? Or you can use water, which is cleaning, like wiping your windows and cleaning your windows and washing drapes or whatever, And then also fire. A lot of people use,
like
fire to purify.
Or sage. Like incense or sage.
Right, or something like that. But don't do that unless you also open the windows. So I always say, if you want to do a very easy energy cleaning, number one, open up the windows. Like the last few days here have been wonderful. We've had a nice breeze through. We have sunshine. Open up all your windows. We hope that, spring is over and summer has arrived. came a little bit late this year, but this is a perfect time to do that. After that, do all your cleaning, wiping the dust, and then after everything is nice and clean, visually, then the energy, you still can, if you like. I use you can use sage, but of course the Chinese 3,000, 4,000, 5,000, 6,000, 7,000 years ago didn't have Chinese sage. They used their own Chinese herbs to do this, and that's what I do.
Which herbs do you use, Angie?
I use a moxie stick, a moxibustion stick.
Does it smell good?
It smells like sage, but it's stronger, and it's used by acupuncturists.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah, and it's like a big herbal cigar. Yeah, but there's a way to do there's a way to do it too. So there's blessings, and there's a certain way to use it. But anyway, you can use sage, you can use incense, you can use bells. A lot of people love to use the Tibetan tingler bells. You can use a singing bowl.
Talk about that.
Oh, the singing bowl has many different kinds of metal melted together and shaped. Usually they're hand shaped and forged into the bowl, and you use a wooden mallet, and you can rub it around or roll it around the outside rim, and it causes this resonance in there. That's wonderful. Or there's special bells that again are forged from a mixture of metals. I think it's like 7 different metals, all melted together, and you could use bells. You can use music.
Do you pray when you prepare people's homes and or offices?
I do. I say a prayer for every single one of my clients when I enter and when I leave and when I'm doing any energy cleaning.
Explain what that is for those of us that don't understand what you're talking about. What is energy cleaning?
Energy cleaning is what we just described.
That's what I thought.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's basically cleaning and clearing the energy that's on everything. Now, let's go back to the one part of the conversation when you said you don't have to get rid of everything, but there's a caveat.
Yes, there's the caveat. Well, the caveat, as I said, you don't have to get rid of everything. But if you bring something new into your home, the first thing, my clients come to me for different reasons. One of the reasons is say, oh, everything was going okay in my life, and then all heck broke, all of a sudden everything turned wrong. What happened? And I want it cleaned. I want to find out what is going on. Well, there's a lot of reasons. Sometimes it doesn't have to do with Feng Shui. But the first thing I ask them is, did you bring something new into your home, a physical object, or did you meet somebody new?
That's a good question.
Okay? And then I try to trace it, and I try to get the client telling me about the circumstances under which they acquired this new acquaintance or the object, and how long ago and when did their trouble start. And then if there is a link, I will point it out. If there's none, there's none, But very often it is. There's people energy and there's object energy, energy and objects, okay? So that's the caveat. Then I would say, remember you say, your big question, and I've just done a very Chinesey thing, which was not beat around the bush, digress, and come around finally to your question. It's just people get rid of all these things that they've had. I say that if nothing has happened, nothing dramatic, I think the word is dramatic, for good or for bad, has occurred after you brought the object in, and give it a little bit of time. If you bring something in and within a week, 2 weeks, 3 months, half a year, okay, I would say half a year, 9 months, things dramatically change. I mean, big time. You got in a car accident, your mom got sick, your brother lost his job, somebody else in your family got divorced, everybody who came in touch with you, and all of a sudden, everything became toxic. I guess that's the word. Everything just went bad. Then I'll say, whoa, let's step back and take a look at this. What happened? What changed? Everything else was the same, except you changed the energy.
Doesn't that give objects power by doing this kind of analysis? In a sense, Are we saying that we have to pay attention to objects and their origins and their surroundings? Because if they enter our environment, whatever was happening there is coming in with the object. We're bringing a living thing in our space, is what I'm saying. Even though typically people look at objects as inanimate. That's why I keep saying this over and over, because we're bringing living energy that's on and in those objects. Mm-hmm. Let's talk about good fortune and the prosperity that you've written about. You like these gold coins, don't you?
The gold coins are something. The thing about the gold coins is that you have to be careful which dynasty it came from.
Talk about that.
There are many dynasties of China, and some were prosperous and some were not. Some were ruled fairly and well, and others were ruled by horrible people. So when you pick out a set of Chinese coins and you want to be prosperous, make sure you pick it out from a dynasty.
Well, name a few dynasties we should know about that were really prosperous.
That I do not have in my head, Kim.
Okay.
And I will know that. Okay. But you should check on, for example, the Ming Dynasty was known very much for, beautiful things, and that's just one example. But there are so many of the dynasties that just do a little bit of homework first. I would just say in general, if you don't know the origin of something, or you can't read it, or you don't understand it, don't buy it. Don't bring it home.
Some people have, from time to time in my life, offered me clothing that they used to wear. And ever since I've been aware of Feng Shui and aware of the physics, I've always said, absolutely not.
And that's a smart thing.
I don't want to wear somebody else's clothing that struggled or had strife or wasn't accomplishing something.
Exactly. And if it's someone, like I said, if you knew that person, for example, if it's your mom, you love your mom, you know she was a wonderful, good person, kind,
she was.
Heart, compassionate.
She definitely was.
Oh, okay.
She's passed on now, but
yeah. But if you feel that way about your mom, you would have no hesitation, right?
Right.
Would you take it if your mom gave you something?
Oh, absolutely. My mom used to make beautiful Angora and silk.
Right, exactly.
Clothing.
I have pieces of clothing for my mom. Both my mom and dad have passed on. I still have things of theirs. I have to hold on to them. Because I moved around so a lot, there are so few things that they ground me. They're my roots. They're part of my childhood. I still have the clock that was on the mantle in our house in Wellington. It was a wind-up clock, and I still have that. And then my husband has his grandmother's clock, the one that also was a wind-up. So we have these two. They are now antiques because they're both over 75 years old, right? And so that's okay because you knew who they belonged to. But when, we were just talking about maps and you talk about clothes, you go to Goodwill and there's, shabby chic and all this. But geez, you're really taking it. I believe that you're really taking a chance when you have some, especially anything that touches the body.
Exactly. Well, all I can tell you is that I've been called superstitious about that, and I have friends that really love going to garage sales and every age, okay?
Right.
And I just laugh because I know they don't know what they're bringing in their homes.
Let me pose a question back to you.
Sure.
How about, all right, someone might be listening to us now.
Yes.
And that's great. I hope there are a lot of people listening to us. But how about somebody who has his lucky fishing hat or his lucky jacket that he always wears to a Dodgers game or a Padres game or a Yankees game, right? Or
right.
Lucky. Now, to me, is that superstition? Because wait, that's all winning energy. I always hang that flag, and boy, every time I hang that banner out, USC wins a football game, or the Lakers, your Lakers jacket, and I always wear that when I go to a Lakers game or when I watch a Lakers game, and they win. Now, how is it different? That, to me, would be the superstitious part.
Got it. That is superstitious.
Well, somebody will say, well, but you say that you bring something from someone else's home, but wait a minute, if the angels always won when I wore my lucky angel's jacket, right?
Yes.
Isn't it absorbing all that wonderful winning energy?
I would imagine it is.
And why not?
And why not? I'll wear the hat. Bring it.
So, here, what's different? To me, there's not much difference. That winning energy there, which brings me to antiques and furniture. How many times have you gone down the street or driven down the street and you see a business that is thriving? Maybe it's a restaurant or a drugstore or a little gift shop or any kind of business. And it was there for 25 years. And finally, the owners decide, we're going to expand. Then they move. And within how long? The business is out of business.
I've seen this a lot.
We see it a lot, don't we? Every one of your your listeners, have probably seen that. Their local barbershop, their local something, right?
Actually, I just did a show yesterday with the owners of BioShield in New Mexico, and they produce healthy living paint, non-toxic, no solvents, nothing. They've been doing it for 20 years. They told a story and they were near a Home Depot. Tons of business was coming in, and then Home Depot put a bunch of poles and a lot of microwave lines near there. And they felt they needed to move for their well-being and the well-being of their paint. And they lost clients. A lot. And their business was thriving there. So that's kind of a mixed, interesting story.
Well, yeah. It is a mixed, interesting story, but we won't go into the Feng Shui of that.
Yeah.
But let's go back to, just a simple example again of a business that was thriving in the same place that's been there for 40 years, okay? Or 25. I mean, most businesses don't last. By the 10th year, 4 are left out of 100 after the 10th year.
That's interesting.
Yeah. 80% in the first 5 years fail of business startups. So let's take 100 businesses. 80% in the first 5 years have failed. So that's 20 left, correct?
Yes.
And 80% of those that are left don't make it to the 10th year.
Wow.
So now I'm mathematically challenged. Is it 4? 80% of the 20.
Let me explain one thing to you.
Yeah,
if you ever do this to me again on the air, you're in big trouble. I'm going to light a punk for you.
No, 80%. 80% of the 100.
Let's do it now that you're challenging me mathematically. Right. How dare you? All right, so in the first 5 years, we have 100.
Right.
In the first 5 years, 80% are gone, correct? So we have 20 left.
All right. Now, by the 10th year, 80% of the 20 are gone.
So 50% of that would be 10, right?
Uh-huh.
And 75% would be 15, would be 5. So about 4. You're right, 4.
So here we are. Okay, so
there's 4
businesses that are thriving. Okay, and then all of a sudden they decide to move. They actually pick up and go to another location, and their business within 2 years is gone. You see it over and over and over again. You know why? A couple of things. Number one, the Feng Shui totally changed. They had prosperity energy at that location. They should have done something differently, but don't move. Now, what are the things they could have done? Number one is they could have taken with them things, furniture that belonged to the original, the original building with them. In other words, those are the goose that lays the golden egg. Those are the talismans that hold the prosperity energy. So when you move to a new location, don't get rid of all your furniture. Keep something. I still have the desk where I wrote my first book. That was 30 books ago.
Got it.
I still have that same desk. It was also my desk where I ran, from which I run my business. And I recently changed my telephone because it finally died. But I took it with me. So I tell people, and this has happened. I had a client in Pasadena, your neck of the woods.
Indeed.
And the person had moved to, he was prospering. I'm going to a larger facility. This is a great place, blah, blah. I got a good deal on it, la-di-da-da. And what happened, he gets there, and his business went flat and started going down. I said, did you bring any of the old furniture? No. We got rid of everything. You see, they're so proud that they got rid of everything. And I'm just, tearing out my hair. No. I said, what happened to your desk? Oh, I gave it to my brother-in-law. And I said, how is he doing? Oh, he's doing fantastic. So what did this man do? He gave away. He literally junked his prosperity talisman.
Wow.
So there is a moral to the story.
Yes.
We're talking about inanimate objects. We talk about prosperity. And, in Hong Kong, where that's the ground zero for for Feng Shui right now, because communism kind of took over China. And so, a lot of these ancient practices were kind of,
scrapped,
food and, and they were abandoned.
That's a very big thing you just said, that Hong Kong is the ground zero of China. That's sad.
No. Feng Shui.
Feng Shui.
Feng Shui is, that's kind of like the place, okay? But it's like the epicenter of it.
Okay.
So the epicenter of Feng Shui practice is there because it was preserved, okay? And so if you had, you started your little business. Let's say you're, who is that? The guy who started Microsoft. Started
Bill Gates.
Garage. Bill Gates. No. Who's Steve Jobs,
Paul.
right?
Paul?
Right. The people who started, in a garage, Apple Computer, Steve Jobs.
Steve Jobs.
Okay. Then they started, a couple of guys together, and they started in a garage or something. Anyway, let's just say it is a business that started in a little small garage or something. And then they became this mega multi-billion-dollar corporation. Okay. You still need to hang on to something, because that was like the seed.
Got it.
And we were talking about inanimate objects. A seed has the potential, let's just go right back to the real basics. The seed that falls to the ground, everything in that tiny seed, you talk about faith. They talk about the faith of a mustard seed, right?
Yes.
Which is one of the smallest, smaller than a sesame seed. Everything in that one tiny little seed that it's almost the size of a head of a pin, has enough stuff in it, has enough essence. Everything is there for a mustard plant to grow into a field of mustard greens.
Well, some people say that you have the seed based on the objects that have positive life-giving energy and prospering energy.
Yes.
And environments, but also some people say that the actual astrological capture of the day a business starts also influences the activities of that business.
Did you say picture?
No, I'm saying that the astrology, in combination with what you're describing, also has its way.
And I agree.
But there's so many different types of astrology, It's
right, but may I just expand on that?
Please.
I absolutely believe in that. Because you have to think that, that's why, to me, a horoscope is so critical. Every one of us who are living today were born at a certain time, certain place, certain moment. You could have two women giving birth at the same time, right next to each other, someplace in the world. In India, in Brazil, in Bangladesh, in Birmingham, Alabama, Birmingham, England, whatever, right? At that moment, first of all, the mothers are not the same. I don't care if they're born exactly at the same moment.
Right.
Correct? The
Correct.
mothers are not the same. And the DNA and all that scientific, and the physiological and all that stuff is not the same. So even though they're born exactly at the very, very same moment, it will not be the same for each child.
Right.
All right. The other thing, which is even more, to me, is more profound, Kim, is that at that moment of your birth, all the conditions in the universe were a certain way. One split second later, when your body, your head, the whole body came out of your mom's womb and the birth canal, and you were born and took your your first breath, everything in the world had changed 1 second later. Everything. Water had gone over dams, the stars and the movement of the stars were different. A bird moved in its sleep.
Right.
A skunk walked by. Something happened. Everything, every single thing in the universe had changed by 1 second. It will never, ever, ever in the history of the universe be exactly the same again. That's Angie Wong's. That is Angi Ma Wong's thought of what the universe is doing.
You're a very good student, I'll tell you that.
Well, that's why each one is so unique, so special. And I truly believe that every one of us, I'm writing this book right now, just finished proofing it. I'm, going to go back to the computer now. After I've proofed it, now I'm going to go back and, make the corrections and send it off to my editor, hopefully in the next few days. And one of the things I said is you are a unique creation. You are a unique creation. That comes from somebody's quote. That expression comes from somebody. I can't remember. I have so many quotes in my book. But it is. Every one of us is a unique creation. There will never be. And one of the chapters, the little mini sections in the book, is you have a purpose in life. You were put on the earth and given life for a purpose. Discover what that purpose is. And it was, I think it was the guy who wrote about love, Leo Pascalia.
Oh, yeah.
Pascalia, who said,
yes.
What you were born with were the gifts from God. What you do with your gifts is your gifts back to God. Oh, I love that. But isn't that the truth?
It is.
And people who think they're worthless, who think they're useless, they've done nothing in the world because they haven't achieved fame and celebrity and and wealth. But every one of us is connected. That's what Qi is all about. This universal energy, this cosmic energy, and which brings me to something that you just touched upon that I'd like to connect with the Feng Shui, is that we also believe that there's that essence of life, and we call it Jing. Jing literally means essence, and Jing is some people call it a soul that moves from one body or one soul to another or whatever. And for those who believe in reincarnation, that's not hard to believe.
I do. I accept reincarnation.
Oh, I think so too.
We just have too much evidence now that there's this other realm and that we've come again and again.
Somehow in my beady little mind, I just cannot believe that the essence of a person dissipates and disappears to nothing. It goes back somewhere. And the first time my cousin, who was about my same age, many, many years ago, about 20, 25 years ago, when she was killed in a car accident, and I saw her, during the viewing, and I saw her body there. And I looked down there, and I said, up to that time, I was so frightened about dying. I mean, I had panic attacks about it. And I looked down at my cousin's body, and I said, hey, that's not my cousin. That's the shell of, that's the shell. It's like the snail or, the shellfish that comes out of comes out of the shell. That's just the housing.
Yeah, it's like Elvis left the building,
Right.
Elvis has left the building. I looked at my father. I was present when my mother passed 2 years ago and was there the night that my dad passed, like 20 minutes after. And clearly, they leave the body.
Yes.
And clearly, they're not housed there.
Yes.
They're not in bondage in the body.
Yes.
It's fascinating. It's mysterious, too. There's a mystery to it, like a reverent mystery.
Yes. But in my mind, I just cannot grasp that the essence, the spirit, the soul dissipates and becomes nothing. To me, I think, I don't know what form it takes, this cosmic energy that binds us all. Maybe it's one big blob of energy and then it's doled out. Doled out.
There must be a cosmic accounting system.
What's that?
There must be a cosmic accounting system.
There must be something, okay? But it's doled out, and when a sperm and an egg meet someplace, guess what? Bing! Something happens. And the jing, or the essence in Chinese is jing, goes in. It enters somewhere, and those two cells become a life together, a new person. See, it just blows my... I just cannot accept that the spirit that was your father, your mother, my mom, my dad, the people who I've loved, who have passed on, dissipated to nothing. I can't, it just, it might not be logical. I don't know what it is. I just cannot believe it. But, after that happened and I was not afraid to look at dead bodies anymore. I wasn't afraid to look out into open caskets anymore.
Nor was I, actually.
That took away my fear, because and another thing too, I have to share with you.
Please.
Again, it has to do with the spirit and the energy. Is that for years, what frightened me was dark, and that's one of the fears, major fears, is the fear of dying, right? And the fear of dying, because dying is, a lot of people think that dying is darkness. I don't think dying is darkness. I think darkness is light. Death is light. I lay down on the grass one day, and you know how you close your eyes?
Right.
And you're facing the sun on, at the beach or something, and you know how it's bright behind your eyelids?
Yes.
I believe that's what it is. I don't think that when you die, it becomes dark. I believe it's you go to light.
There's certainly a lot of evidence of people who have,
those
quote, clinically died,
yes,
and come back with reports.
Yes, and they come back and report. There's so much evidence now, and this is not just anecdote. Well, it's all anecdotal, but the Chinese have a saying, and I love this: to know the road ahead, ask those coming back.
Oh, I love that.
Isn't that beautiful?
That is beautiful. It's
so easy, but it's profound. If you're fearful of something, ask people who have been there and done that.
That's awesome. I have a couple more questions for you. In your Feng Shui do's and taboos on financial success, you say, do have a desk custom made for you with the auspicious Feng Shui dimensions of 35 inches wide by 60 inches long by 33 inches high, and watch your business skyrocket. What the heck is that? Where'd you come up with that?
All right. That is from the ancient Chinese text.
When you say ancient Chinese text, are we talking Taoism? Are we talking the I Ching? What are we talking about?
No. There are a lot of books written by Feng Shui masters through, millennium. And through the millennia. And what happens is they document these things. And it's a part of sacred geometry, Kim.
Talk about it.
Okay. We know that there is a sacred geometry in the world. It's the way cells divide. It's the number of petals that show up in a chrysanthemum blossom or a rose, okay? And it multiplies. Now, I'm not the biologist. I'm not the physicist. I'm not.
I understand.
Okay. But there is a method. Things are not random. This is a part of a universal plan. That's why the world is such a wonderful, fascinating, fabulous place. And that's why I love learning new things. I wish I knew more about it, but there's a certain multiplication. And over the years, this is the sacred geometry. There are certain dimensions of geometry that are very comforting to human beings. Let me put it this way. I'll put it in practical terms, because that's what I believe in, practical Feng Shui and make it for the layperson. someone like me who does not understand exactly, but I do believe in it because I see how things multiply, and you go out to nature and you know that the number of branches, the number of needles on a pine tree and the pine cone and all those things are not random because I'm out there in nature and I see this at work. And the thing is, for example, if you go into a hotel room and it's square, it feels comfortable. If you go into a room at a round hotel, for example, the Bonaventure, it used to be the Bonaventure downtown.
Right.
Maybe it still is. And you go into, and there's a place on Lake Union. It used to be the Marriott up in Seattle. Up in Seattle, on Lake Union, there is a round, these columnar, cylindrical shaped buildings.
Okay.
Where the rooms are wedge-shaped. There are no corners.
Okay.
Right? You do not feel comfortable. Most people do not feel comfortable sleeping in a round bed. Okay, because there's something in our makeup. I don't know what it is. Now, again, I'm not the person who deals with, I'm not the expert on this. But there's something for us that gravitates or craves or needs this geometry. We like square rooms, rectangular rooms, nothing with angles and shapes. And Feng Shui, we also do not like that. We like everything to be, what we call balance. A square or rectangular room is balanced. An L-shaped room is not as balanced, but at least it has, 90-degree corners. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
But when you go into a room that has angled, I'm not talking about a bay window now. I'm talking about when the whole wall is at different angles. And some people have homes like this. And sometimes the hallways are like that. It's okay for a hallway, but when you sleep in a room and there are 4 walls or there are 5 walls or there are 6 walls and they don't mesh and they're at different angles and they're combined with square corners and 40, maybe if it's a 45-degree angle or it's a 90-degree angle, that's okay. But when it goes into, it's 22.5 angle wall, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
There's something about it that makes us very uncomfortable. Now, there's another fascinating topic. Why do people crave this? Why do we feel uncomfortable when we're in a wedge-shaped room? Okay? But in Feng Shui, we want that balance. And the balance only comes with those, the 90-degree, 45 degrees or whatever. But not all of the walls. I mean, if you were sitting or sleeping in a room that was octagon shaped, that's okay. That might be okay. You could, and I've seen that too. But you wouldn't want to sleep in it. It's okay. Round is okay. You can be in a cylindrical shaped room, round, totally 360 degrees, and sit at a round table or an oval. Those are okay. But once you get into these odd degrees and odd numbers, and
there's obviously a mathematics to this too. Can we talk about color for a moment?
Sure.
I noticed that you talk about red and purple in your financial success book.
Yes.
Purple being associated with wisdom and wealth.
Yes.
And red being associated with fame and celebrity and potential and prosperity.
Yes.
Why?
Well, first of all, let's go back to the elements.
Okay.
The elements tell us that all metal comes from Earth, correct?
Yes.
And what is our money come from? Before we had paper money,
we had metal.
We had metal, and we still do.
Yes.
Coins are worth a lot right now, and it's forged from metal. Do you know why we don't have square coins?
No.
Because they're pointed on the corners and it'll rip your clothes when you put them in your pocket.
Got it.
Okay.
I thought you were going to tell me something that wasn't obvious, but I'll accept that.
Okay. But the Chinese coin is a circle, all right, because it's easy to carry, and the square it's square. So the circle represents metal. The square represents the earth. So earth and metal are together. So we have the earth, we have heaven, earth, and a man holding a coin is between metal, the metal and the earth.
But the color red, you're suggesting people wear it.
Yes. The red color, and the coin, the square hole, by the way, is so that you could string the coins together.
That's great.
Yeah, okay. Now, why red? Red is the color of life. Red is the color of blood. Red is the color of prosperity. Red is the color of protection. Red is the color of happiness.
Now, in Kabbalah, the red string that Kabbalists wear is also considered for protection. And I think it's very interesting. Is it a frequency issue? Is it the frequency red is protective? How is it protective?
I think that, now, this is pure conjecture.
Okay.
I took cultural anthropology back in college. That was a long time ago. Do you remember when human beings or humanoids discovered fire?
I wasn't around, but please tell me about it.
Fire, right? Well, they didn't discover fire, but they realized that the wild animals that would make them their lunch or dinner would be deterred by fire.
Okay.
And fire is red.
Is it red or orange?
Fire is heat. Fire is red.
Wow. Okay.
So I think that may have something to do with it. Also, blood, which represents life.
Right.
Okay, that might have something to do with it.
So red is not necessarily angry.
Oh, no, not at all. Not in Chinese culture, it isn't.
Well, I had a red background on my website.
Yes.
Encasing the site. It's Rainmaking Time. I loved it, but some people were put off by it.
Right. Too intense for some people. They can't handle it. Some people don't like to wear red. It's too bright. There's something. I love red.
I do too.
Because I was born in an element of, my Chinese zodiac animal, and it's one of the elements. Every animal, the 12 animals, depending on what year you were born, is a element, and mine happens to be the element of fire. That's why I love red.
I also love purple. Purple's gorgeous.
Well, I love purple too. But then you say, how do you get purple? Purple comes from blue and red, doesn't it?
That's true.
Fire and water. But water actually in Chinese is black. And that's why do you see red and black a lot in Chinese themes?
Yes.
Uh-huh. And that's it. Water and fire. That's the combination.
What would you like to have happen in the next 10 years for you? Is there something that you'd like to do? I know you're publishing a lot.
I would like to see my work help people. I would like to share my knowledge. I know that each one of us has a finite time on this earth, and I would like to share my knowledge so people don't have to go through what I did, that steep learning curve that people need. I'd like to share that with as many people as I can and help people and make a difference in their lives in some way.
I think you're already doing that, don't you? Don't you think you're already doing that? I mean, you've trained a lot of people.
Well, there are many, on many levels, both as a cancer survivor, as a mother, as an adoptee, as an entrepreneur, as a Feng Shui consultant, as a writer. There's a lot of things I've learned, and I like sharing it. And if people are interested, that's great. That's what I'd like to do.
Do you think that Feng Shui can help governments? Do you think that government buildings, government offices, government locations could be retooled for more harmony?
I think that absolutely. We have looked at the White House, for example. Terrible feng shui there. Spokes of a wheel, the French architect who designed it. Terrible. All those streets aiming towards the center like a target. You realize that when you look at it, all those circles that break up, DuPont Circle and all those other circles in Washington causes a lot of disharmony. And the White House is like a bullseye. with all the spokes of many streets aiming right towards it. They should activate the fountain right in front of the White House. That would dissipate some of that negative, what we call sat-hei or sha-qi, killing arrows, killing energy aimed towards something. That's why Chinese don't like to have a house at the intersection of a T, two streets that make a T, or in the cradle of a Y, two streets that, come like a V and then a post. You don't want to be inside that little, V that forms, that is formed when you have three streets come together in a Y. I think that governments are, I actually did for, the LA Times did an article on me years ago, and then the city of Gardena asked me to go and help them. They were willing for me to go and help them, and it's documented.
That's profound. I think that given the evidence of Feng Shui, that this would be extremely critical for almost beginning new types of structures in these times that are so delicate, with so much going on and everything available instantaneously. It would be remarkable to do new buildings, completely different setups for the leaders of today.
One of my golden rules is everything is fixable. You do not have to tear down the whole building. You could actually, there are many, many strategies to correct Feng Shui non-compliance.
I hear you.
That's what I love to call something that is not in compliance Feng Shui-wise, or Feng Shui non-compliance. But that's why people call me in. That's why people ask me to come to their offices after 25 years and say, we need an overhaul, please come and do it. And I do all seven floors of the whole building that belong to the company, that sort of thing.
Wow, that's a big project.
It is. That was up in Oakland at American President Lines.
I noticed in one of your books you talked about putting a pyramid somewhere. What does that mean?
Well, a pyramid, the shape of a pyramid is a fire. There are symbols, there are different shapes and symbols for each of the elements.
Right.
And that's what we do. We put the right element in the right place. And again, after an analysis, you want to make sure that it is. We've had, for example, the city of Cyprus. When they were doing the fountain, and there were some statues in the fountain, and they wanted to make sure that the artwork was in the right place. So they asked me to do that. I mean, I've done a lot of public buildings. I've done corporations, and a lot of mixed use. I've done high rises on Wilshire Boulevard. I've done municipal buildings. I've done in Portland, Oregon. I mean,
all over.
Yeah, all over our country, and some in other places too.
Well, I really want to thank you for joining us today. Angie Ma Wong, the Feng Shui Lady at fengshuilady.com, the author of Reggie, Who Ate My Socks, Barack Obama, History Maker, Chinese Lunar New Year Song, Linking Our Lives, Well-Being, the Baby Boomers 4-Minute Bible, the Woman's 4-Minute Bible, a lot of books. Target the U.S. Asian Market, Origins, Night of the Red Moon, Bitter Roots, Feng Shui, Do's and Taboos, Financial Success, and Health and Well-Being, and of course a Feng Shui home design kit, a toolkit, which is remarkable, and many more books. Angie Ma Wong, thank you so much for being a guest, and I hope that you'll come back. We're going to talk with some physicists and others around the world who have used Feng Shui to talk about their experiences. I'd like to have you on for that.
Thank you so much. It's my pleasure.
Thank you.